The world of Dark and Darker is littered with sneaky rogues and beefy fighters who want to get in your face and stab and hit and shield bash you until you're merely a dead loot pile. But what if you want to live out the fantasy of wielding powerful spells and zapping people with lightning? Well, I have good news for you, because just like in real life, magic is always an option. My name is Ethan for the Gamer, and today I'm going to go over all things magic and spells in Dark and Darker. In Dark and Darker, you have access to 6 classes at the moment. There will be more classes added, but currently these are what we have. And the 2 spellcasting classes we have are the Wizard and the Cleric. The Wizard focuses primarily on damage dealing spells with a few utility buff spells as well. The Wizard's what you're gonna play if you want to cast fireballs, lightning spells, electrocution, fun stuff like that. Very offensive spellcaster. The Wizard also is primarily a spellcaster. They don't like to be in melee range. They also have the ability to meditate because of that, which allows you to self-refresh spells during the game. The other downsides of the Wizard are they have slow interaction speed, low physical damage, and low health, so they're going to be very fragile. The other spellcaster we have is the Cleric. The Cleric is kind of a hybrid melee spellcaster support class. You get access to good armor and melee weapons, and most of your spells are protective, buff, healing spells. They're not going to be as blasty as the Wizard, but they have a lot of really good utility. They also suffer from a slow interaction speed, they have a slow attack speed, and they do a low amount of bonus damage. So in order to cast spells in Dark and Darker, you have to memorize the spells, and the game uses what's called a spell memory system. You have a limited amount of spell memory that you can use to memorize and know spells. So you can see on my Cleric here, I have a limit of 12 spell memory, so I can only memorize that amount of spells. How that works is each tier of spell requires that much memory to use. So a tier 1 spell will require 1 spell memory to memorize. A tier 3 spell will require 3 spell memory to memorize, and so on and so forth. So that means you can't just load up all the most powerful spells you have. You can see if I try to do that, it's going to gray out the spell, which means I don't have the spell memory required to cast that. Which means you have to balance out your tiers of spells, and you can't just take all your most powerful spells. If you don't have the required spell memory to cast a spell, you can still memorize it, but when you go to cast the spell in the game, it just won't work. You can increase the amount of spell knowledge that you have by equipping certain gear. Things like pendants, robes, gloves, etc. can all improve the types of spells that you can cast. Now, in order to cast a spell once you're in the game, all you have to do is equip your item that lets you cast a spell, like your wizard staff for instance, then select the spell that you want to cast, and then when you use your action, you'll cast the spell that you have selected. So if you decide you want to play a wizard, here's the spells you start with. For tier 1, you start with Zap, which if hit, it deals magic damage and burns the target for 1 second. Light Orb, which gives you spheres of floating light. Ignite will set a target's weapon on fire, dealing 5 additional magic damage and burning enemies when they're hit. Then we have tier 2 spells of Slow, which slows the target's movement speed by 40% for 2.5 seconds. Ice Bolt, which will deal magic damage and reduce the target's movement speed by 15% for 1 second. Then tier 3, you have Magic Missiles, which fires up to 10 homing missiles that each deal 12 damage. It stops firing if you move though. And then you have Haste, which will give the target a 14% action and move speed bonus for 8 seconds. Then we move on to tier 4. We have Lightning Strike, which after 4 seconds, a bolt of lightning falls on the targeted area, dealing spell damage. Invisibility, which makes the target invisible and gives them a 10% move speed bonus for 3 seconds. And you have Fireball, iconic wizard spell, which shoots a fireball that causes 30 direct damage to a target and 10 splash damage and a knockback effect to nearby targets. And then tier 6, you have Chain Lightning, which will electrocute the target, inflict spell damage, and fires lightning that is transferred to a being within 4 meters and shocks up to 3 times. If you decide to play a Cleric, your starting spells are as follows. For tier 1, you get Protection, which will create a shield that blocks 20 physical damage for 20 seconds. Bless, which gives a +3 strength, agility, and will bonus for 30 seconds. Tier 2, you have Lesser Heal, which heals a target for 15 health. Divine Strike, which will increase weapon damage by 10 for 20 seconds. And Cleanse, which will remove all harmful magical effects from the target. For tier 3, you have Bind, which binds the target for 0.75 seconds. Tier 5, you get Holy Light, which heals an ally for 30 HP or does 100 base magic damage to an undead target. Tier 6 gives you Sanctuary, which concentrates on a specific area for a certain period of time, healing friendly beings within the area by 5 per second and dealing 14 spell damage to undead per second. And for tier 8, you get Resurrection, which will bring someone back from the dead. Now, another couple tips when it comes to casting spells in the game is it's important to actually equip extra spells that go over your knowledge limit on the spell memory priority bar. This is because you can actually gain more knowledge during a run. This unlocks those extra spells on your spell wheel, even if you entered the run with less spell knowledge. Another thing to note is it's possible to equip 2 spell memory wheels that double the number of spells that you can take into a run. This will not increase your spell knowledge, but it's something you can do for in-game wizard and cleric characters with full knowledge that can equip 2 separate wheels of spells. And honestly, it's as simple as that. Now you'll be ready to start blasting all of those undead and those pesky other players that want to loot your dead corpse in Dark and Darker. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure you visit thegamer.com for all things gaming, and we'll see you in the next video.